Let's go.
Wednesday afternoon.
Apart, maybe there are one or two, but you still wouldn't say this is team. So I quite like his openness, his honesty. Whether it's, that said, saying something which is clearly very critical of your team and the individuals in it, is that much different from singling out one or two individuals and saying, well, Rashford has caused problems and someone else has, and so on, which I would never admire any manager for doing. You should never really single out a player publicly and have a go at them. And maybe he's doing that by saying this is the worst team ever, but I suppose he's spreading the criticism amongst the whole team. But maybe it's not the wisest thing to do. Maybe he does it more towards the owners, the board, to say, look, I'm struggling because a lot of these players they're not up to scratch for whatever reason. They're not good enough. So he wants a change in personnel. I mean, there's been nothing, as far as I know, in the January window so far. Actually, it's been very little activity that I can see around the Premier League generally in that. And January is a bit like that. Teams don't always acquire specifically great new players in the January window. But yeah, so I'm not quite sure. I have a hunch from what I see of Amorim, and of course I don't know the man or his methods. We talked earlier on another podcast about first impressions. My impression of him is that he's a good football man. He's a decent football man, decent man, who I think he has been successful, and I think he has every chance of being successful if they give him some time. And I like to think they will give him time, because otherwise Man United are on this roller coaster of taking on managers and sacking them very quickly, like one or two other teams have done over the years, and it's not the right thing to do. They've chosen him. They should stay, in my view, keep the belief they had in him when they took him on, give him a chance to show what he can do. And the best example of the sense in doing that was Alex Ferguson himself, because he went to Man United in 1986, I believe it was, and his first trophy, and I hate to say this, but was against Crystal Palace in the 1990 FA Cup final, where there was a replay. I went to both those games at Wembley. I think it was 1990, and that was his first trophy. And on the way to the final, they were drawing or possibly losing with like 5 or less minutes to go.
Right.
In the last minute, they got an equaliser, and then in the replay, they won and went on to meet Palace in the final. That was a replay when they used to have replays of the final, and then they won the cup. I remember Brian Robson, their captain, holding the cup aloft, and that was Ferguson's first trophy, the beginning of years of dominance. But if the board had sacked him, and it was said at the time that had they have gone out of the FA Cup when they were losing just before the end, he would have been sacked. Now, we don't know whether that's true, but it seemed to be true at the time. But they stuck with him after 4 years of mediocrity, which is by today's standards, you would never be given that amount of time. If you've got 4 months, you'd be lucky. But he's a good example of a good manager. He'd done a lot. I believe he was at Aberdeen. He'd achieved a lot of things there. And so, they stuck with him, and look what they got for their patience. And I think any club nowadays, in the Premier League particularly, they run the risk of losing or turfing out a really good potential manager who can achieve great things. Because the bigger clubs in the Premier League, or all of the Premier League, they only take on a manager who's got a bit of a tried and tested record. They're not taking on a novice for the most part. So they're being foolish if they get rid of somebody too quickly. So I hope they don't sack him. I don't think they will this season. But obviously, if they now went on a terrible run of losses, then any owner is going to look at it and say, well, how long can we sort of accept this to be the case? Because I don't believe Man U will get into a relegation battle, but they're not that far above the relegation. Well, I suppose they are probably a good 10 points, so they're not in a relegation battle. But if they kept losing more games, you never know what could happen.
Yeah.
I hope they keep him there, though. I hope they keep him.
Yeah. I hope. Well, it'd be a shame for Man United to get relegated, wouldn't it?
It would. Yeah,
it would be a great
it really
shock.
would be.
It'd be a great shock to the footballing world, if that were to happen.
Yeah.
Now, this is one coach or one manager that I don't really like, and I like his personality. I just don't like the fact that he just keep being successful. And that may be partly because I don't like his team.
Who is this then?
And this is someone
Not
you
Slot.
you as the slot machine. Even that
Slot
name
machine.
is ridiculous. The slot machine.
Yeah, but it's a clever play on the words, isn't it? Really,
I know.
clever play on words.
Yeah,
But do you not like him then?
I don't. I'd love him as a person. I just don't like his position and why to be successful. I don't know. Jealousy.
You begrudge him his success. Jealousy.
Well, I
yeah.
am.
Yeah.
I am actually. Yeah, this is me just being honest. Yeah. I mean, he won again yesterday against Lille in the Europa League, not Europa, Champions League. I just thought, how long is he gonna keep winning games? You know, he's a new manager. He's supposed to have a sort of a downtime where he sort of gets acquainted with the team that he inherited, because he inherited the team, didn't he? And that don't seem to be happening. So I'm really jealous. What do you think?
They've not had a downturn at all, have they? In the same way that sometimes a new manager, if a team is struggling, a new manager will give them a bump upwards, and they'll win a few games, or they may be on a better footing thereafter. But they've not had any downturn at all. And I think one of the reasons for that is that the team is pretty much the team that Klopp left. Right. As you say, he inherited a very good football team who have been there or thereabouts, as they say, for the last few seasons. And of course, Klopp did win the Premier League back in, I think it was in 2020. But they're an excellent team. But I wonder if the negative effect could happen, because it looks like, as we've said, that Salah may move on. I mean, I think he signed
and the ladies, Dr. Gladys and Phantom and Rose. We all have a lovely show every weekday. So join us for a lovely show.
Say hello to Phantom.